Hey friends, we are back with part 3 of the Origami Dragon Knight tutorial. Now, from the last part, we completed the chest area and the flap arrangements, and now we are going on to the head. Now, the head is a little bit complicated. There's some finicky parts, but I'm going to reference a technique designed, or not really designed, but educated to me and kind of configured by Paper Forger. And if you guys don't know Paper Forger, he's appeared on Origami Review a couple times, and he has a great understanding of how to design and collapse box plate models. So this kind of technique or this mentality that I'm about to share with you comes from him. So shout out Paper Forger. Thanks for teaching this to me. All right, so the concept here, and especially useful for things like this where we got middle flaps, is to think of the structure as having, say, a main branch, and then these middle flaps are like splits or smaller branches. So it's kind of like the stem and then branches or leaves, kind of like that. But you can kind of think of it as like the main branch, and then these small ones are splitting off of the main branch. And that's the order that we're going to do to collapse it, so that we don't have to do, say, a parachute method or like a brute force method. It makes it a little bit easier. So first of all, to define our main branch or stem, we can kind of observe these 45-degree lines that hit all the way down, right? They go up, and even though there's a gap here, it's still kind of the same. And this forms our main branch at the lower end. And I know we got some more stuff going on here, but again, we can ignore this for now and worry about that stuff later. We're just going to get this main part down first, and it'll help us collapse the rest next. So let's start into that. We're going to start with the top left, go down, fold this whole branch. I guess these two will kind of come in. You'll kind of see how that works. But again, if you pre-creased it, you should have all these creases ready. So let's dive in. All right, so actually I'll leave the crease pattern there. But I'm gonna take off our clips, and we're gonna be focusing on this top area. So we can just start off by collapsing this down. And at least the way I like to do this, I like to treat it like an Elias stretch, since this main branch is made up of just 45-degree angles. So that's the collapse approach I'm going to do here. And on one side it starts from the corner, and on the other side it doesn't, as you can see from our crease pattern. So just keep that in mind if you don't know what I'm doing here. And if you also aren't able to follow along with this Elias stretch, definitely check out my crease pattern class, because Elias stretches are like the basis technique you should understand to fold box plate models like this. But assuming you've made it this far already, you got a pretty good grip on what an Elias stretch is. Just make sure you navigate your crease pattern correctly. As you can see, even though we have all these middle flaps pre-creased, we are ignoring them for now because of this technique that we're going to use. And it's actually really nice. I've been using it a lot more when I collapse models, and it really helps keep the folding sequence clean and helps get the collapsing very clean, and it's much more enjoyable, you know. I think I know there's a lot of fans of parachute method, but if you can stray away from that, I think your models will improve greatly over time, as well as your finesse and just knowledge of collapsing and understanding of folding sequences. Alright, so we're getting this down. We're basically just collapsing all the pleats, and then here we hit our second Elias stretch for the arm. And while this model is like kind of symmetrical, that specific part is I guess not, like the model's like shifted over a bit. It's like almost a symmetric model. But yeah, so we're just gonna keep going with this, and I'm just going to be folding it live so that you guys, if you're folding along as well, hopefully you don't have to pause the video, you can just leave it running and just match pace with me as I fold. I know sometimes in tutorials if you have to pause a bunch it gets annoying, but even here, right, since we're going from the edges inwards, I guess you can even think of us treating like these as the first main branch, which obviously we're not going to go all the way down, but because of the way this is collapsing, it's close. Before we actually do this part. And we are just about to here. So we're about to hit this portion on our crease pattern. And that's where we're going to get the second part of the main branch collapsed or starting to collapse. So our edges have completed the Elias stretch. All right, so we collapsed the side Elias stretches all the way up till here, and then same thing on this side, we collapsed all the way till here, and we're about to go up to complete our main branch. But something I realized actually when I was folding this is because there's this gap here between this area, it makes it quite strange. So we're going to try to just kind of ignore this for now and think of our flap like this, but as you can see, it won't make it as nice as it could be. But basically, once we're down here, we're going to start to collapse back up along our pre-creases for the other side of the Elias stretch. So about here on this side, and we go a couple more. So just reference your crease pattern accordingly, and it looks like it goes up till here. All right, so up till here. Basically, I'm going up till this line right here, right, and then I can just kind of stop it like this. And then same thing on the other side is I'm just following my creases. Here we go, up. Right, so I'm just completing the Elias stretch up till this point here. Right, and then for now, again, these are all 45-degree angles. So I know you can't really see exactly what I'm doing, but really reference this crease pattern to know where you are. And I guess if you want a grid count, this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grid units up. And we get around here like this, and technically we can fold these pleats back, these vertical pleats back like this on both sides, and on the top we're folding through quite a lot of layers. So just, don't worry about that too much for now. Like this. Actually, it's this way. And that is kind of our main branch here. So as you can see, this part is collapsed down like this. And then we have a bunch of layers sitting on top as such. And that's where we're going to start our collapse. So basically what we've done is we collapsed here up till here, and we collapsed this up till here. We folded this down, and then basically everything up here is just all here. So as we go on, we can kind of go up into this area and fold in these splits. Basically, once we get to here, it'll make it a little bit easier because this is a more normal split. So that's our next goal, is we're going to go up, I guess 3 units, and then make these zigzags as such. And I'll show you guys what that looks like. 3, 2, 1, start. Alrighty, so we ended like right here on our crease pattern is right here. So we're going to extend it up until this area. So, and we're going to unfold a little bit like so, and follow this up a little bit. And again, because there's that gap, it is going to make it a little bit strange, a little bit finicky. So Just really try to remember where your creases are. As you can see, this flap, I'm just holding it kind of like this, so that it's in place. And then here we go for our first section here. So as you can see, I just folded this one, and then right here, another one. And we're going to fold that to the middle one, and then go to the other side. Go like this. And now we're on the other side, and we're going to extend this the same way. There we go, like that. All right, and as you can see, like from this area, it kind of makes a middle flap along itself through the whole thing. We can kind of just fold this down like this for now. Right, so this is like the first branch we started off with. We can just kind of fold this down for now. We're going to work on that later, and then replete through here so that we have our main branch. And this will just help us, you know, collapse the rest of it easier, and then we can worry about that other section later, because if we try to put that in now, it's actually going to be pretty difficult to hold everything together. It just makes a little bit more sense to leave it tucked in like this, right? And again, we're going to worry about that later, but the key point is we have these, right? So these, and you can flatten it out like that if you need to, but these 3 points are these 3 points right here, and that's actually going to make it really easy to finish off the rest of this section. And then once we have that section, then we can do this one, because this one's just a little bit strange. But yeah, sorry if that was a little confusing. Hopefully that made sense. Basically, quick overview: we collapsed lie stretches here, we folded up till here, and then we extended this line up until this area and made this our main branch. And because of this strange unit here, which is basically just this huge flap like this, right? We're not folding these ones in yet. We just have this right here. You can just tuck that down and then fold pleats through it for now. And that lets it collapse flat. All right, so next part is we're going to be doing this section. We're going to be extending these splits, and I'll show you why this makes it really easy to do so. All right, so we have successfully collapsed the base or the main branch. And so now we're going to start collapsing these splits, and we're going to start with the middle one. This, I don't think it really matters which one you start off with, but we'll start off with the middle one just to be cohesive. Basically, we're going to take these one at a time and increment them. So say this right here is right here, and we're going to fold this split on top. And so all we need to do that is just pull out just a little bit of the paper, a couple of the layers, right? Not all the way, because again, this split is only 4 units long. So we're going to go here, and you're just going to collapse that split like this. And the reason why we do it as such is when you refold the middle flap, if you weren't to do it this way, you'd kind of be left hanging, like it'd be very parachuted and left open, where you would have to collapse basically everything at once in order to get it to lay flat. And that makes it a lot kind of more fidgety and more brute forced to collapse, and just oftentimes not as clean of a result. So as you can see, I'm getting all these ready, and we can pretty much exactly just follow these pre-creases here like this, right? And if we pinch that tight, right, we can just fold this one down for now. As we can see, we've completed that split collapse, and it'll still lie flat just like this, right? And our points are all sharp, our creases are done well, nothing over here is affected, and it can still be flat folding as you collapse it. We're gonna do it for the rest now, so that's just up to this edge, and then this sequence will be done for this split. So again, same thing, just open up these layers a little bit, like that, pull out the paper, and since this one's on the edge, it's a lot easier to kind of understand what's going on. Then you're gonna go ahead and collapse along the pre-creases like this. And as you can see, there's our split all done, and it's to the edge. Just make sure everything's nice and clean, just like that. And boom, there's our completed set of middle flaps. So we went from just this one to having all three of these flaps. For now, we can just hold them down here, and we're going to do the same thing for these side ones. So let's try this, and you can see how it works. Kind of the same. As you can see, it's such a clean way to collapse middle flaps. Very non-brute forced method. Quite elegant, in fact. So same thing, you're going to open this up just a little bit for the split and collapse along our pre-creased lines, just like so. All right, we don't have to unfold any further from here for us to collapse along our pre-creases. Same thing on this side. And since we already collapsed the middle, right, we can just leave it be. It doesn't have to change. It's already lined flat, which helps us a ton, and know where it's supposed to go. And just like that, right, we have our splits on this side. We have our branch coming out just like this. And since this started off folded in half, that's how it's going to go. So again, we can just fold this guy up into this kind of pocket, and it collapses down just like that. And as you can see, that was nice and clean. We have an extra flap down here. If you want to keep track of your flaps, you can actually just valley fold this guy down like this. Right? That's the same thing. So now we have access to this last portion, which again, we're going to do one more time. So we're just going to pull out, hang on to these layers, open up the top layers a little bit. That will help us finish off our collapse. So we're here just to review our pre-creases, and then we collapse along these pre-creases to finish off this split just like this. Make sure everything is nice and nice. And again, because the other one has already been completed, it makes it a lot easier to fold. And as you can see, I am fidgeting the paper a little bit just to get the creases in line, but if you were to try to do both this left side and the middle at once, which you would have to do if you're parachuting, unless you're really good at keeping track of where your creases are, it's so easy to get lost and can make this process seem way harder than it really is. This doesn't have to be difficult at all. I used to think middle flaps were quite a challenge and really didn't know how to teach them. So even if you watched my middle flaps tutorial in my crease pattern class, it's not the best way to do it. This way is much better of a way. And as you can see, right, we can fold these three flaps back up. We have all our flaps that we need, and they're collapsed very cleanly. And I did that super casually. I didn't have to open up the whole model or hold things in place with one hand while manipulating with the other hand. It all just kind of stays flat folding like this. And that allows us to do this last side, which I'm just going to show again for you guys, so you don't have to like pause too many times and whatever, you can kind of fold along with me. I'm gonna do this on this side, so we're opening up for the first split. Clasp along our pre-creases. Get that Elias stretch going. And by the third one, you should have hopefully a decent understanding on how to do this. Again, it's not too hard, so don't overthink it too much. And it basically turns these middle flaps into just collapsing almost, you know, like a regular Elias stretch. Like that's basically the concept of why we do this. You know, since these are kind of close to each other, as you can see, I lost the creases a little bit for that the middlemost flap, but we got it recovered. And now it's really clean, just like that. Now we're going to do the next one. So on the crease pattern, that's this one right here. Once again, we are going to open this guy up. And it's the edge, so we open all these layers here and then reclaps along our pre-creases. Just like that. Claps along the edge. And as you can see, this allows all the pleats to just come together. And as such, oh, I dropped paper, here we go. And once we have that all set, we can, again, fold this guy down or up. We're going to fold this one up since it's the very last one. We don't need to fold any more flaps together. So you can fold all these up together and then just fold like this. And boom, there's our middle flaps for the helmet. And so there's 3 flaps on each side. So you can see these will become the horns, and each one has 3 flaps in the middle, or 3 splits in the middle, and then we have 3 flaps along the middle to make the helmet slash face. And so that's this portion of the collapse. That's all done. And again, I hope you guys understood that. It's a much better process than trying to parachute this. Middle flaps often trip people up a lot when they try to just brute force it like that. Because yeah, it gets fidgety. There's kind of layer orientation, and yeah, this is a much better option. All right, so we did the top part of the helmet. Now we're going to do this part, which is very similar in here. It's just in this strange middle flap defined over here, and there's some gaps. So we're going to put that together, and we'll continue from there. All right, so now that we've done this, we're going to focus on here. And again, we're going to treat this as kind of like the main branch. So while we had before this one as the main branch, we're now treating this as the main branch. But since that's down in the middle of the paper, right, it's going to be a little bit weird. So we're going to have to unfold just a little bit to get this guy open like this, right? And you might have to just open this top a little bit more to get some access, because once this is on top, we're going to open up from the bottom just a little bit. I'm going to push this out, and from here now we're going to collapse in this middle flap accordingly. So you should see the pre-creases. We're just worried about these two diamonds for now. Don't worry about the little guys underneath. Those will happen later. Those are a lot easier. We're just gonna worry about these guys on these 2x2 diamonds. And the way these collapse is they rely on this part right here, and this is why this acts as the main branch on that side, because as I'll show you, right? So we're gonna work on the right side right here where these mountain folds are, and then there's a gap. Basically what happens here is these will wrap around that flap, and like this, it's kind of gonna, the diagonals are gonna hug it. So you can see like right here, they're gonna hug on this side and on the other side. And as you push that down, that's what's going to allow the flap to take form, like so. And it's basically the same as the top ones. It's just a little bit different because there's that gap in the middle. They're not quite touching in place. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and this will collapse flat. Right, so again, just follow the pre-creases and these two valleys, which this time we are on this side. They're going to wrap around this portion here. So let me show you, it's like this, right? We have the pre-creases. It's going to wrap this way, and same thing on the back. It's going to wrap around. Make sure you don't trap any paper anywhere. And that's how it's going to exist and fold to the middle of our collapse, just like that. Same thing on this side. Again, a lot of times some papers will be trapped, so just make sure nothing's stuck anywhere. If you see paper stuck, just undo it so that I can follow along with the pre-creases. And boom, there you have our fold. And we're just gonna tighten this up a little bit. And this flap will also be used for, you know, shaping of the helmets and the face. But yeah, that is these two diamonds here. Now, next we're going to do these diamonds on the bottom. These are relatively simple. They're not anything too crazy. It's basically like a 1x1 ally stretch in the middle. It doesn't form any kind of middle flaps or anything, which is why it's nothing crazy. So just navigate it. It's going to be, so if you have our model like this, right? And this is the diamonds we just did, which it's bothering me that the point isn't exactly in place. So I'm gonna recollapse. There you go, just a little bit, so it's in place. All right, if you fold this guy up, and you see where there's a hinge right here, right? So if we open up to the side, we're going to see our ally stretch here that we pre-creased, and it's going to create a new hinge. So we have one on both sides. So I hope you guys can see this diamond. Let me try to start the collapse so you guys can see. But I'm using my finger underneath to push this up, right? And then it's going to form along these valleys for our pre-creases. And this is one of the things I advise to pre-crease the correct direction. But even if it's not the correct direction, just use it as reference. It doesn't have to be entirely perfect. But while we are going to pleat basically this side, try to pleat the single end first, like that. Because in order to pleat this together, you need to do the opposite side as well at the same time. So push this up, find our pre-creasing. Pre-creasing follows this diamond like that. Right, and then do the same thing, crease this side of the ally stretch, and that makes it really, really easy to complete this flap here. You might be wondering, Boice, why are all these flaps here? Well, part of them help for closing the back of this model. Some of them help for extra details in the face. But we'll be using these flaps. And thankfully, in this section of the paper, due to how it's designed, it's not terribly thick on that end, which normally just forcing ally stretches like that can cause some added thicknesses. So there you go, just like that. We're gonna fold this back down as such. We're gonna leave these guys in the back. So this is what our consequence folds are in the back, and as you'll see later, you can use this to close the back of the model, which we'll get into in the shaping tutorial. But yeah, don't worry about that for now. Just let it sit there, hold it tight, press it tight so that it can stay in place. But yeah, now we just got a couple things left to collapse in the head. All right, so all we have left is these two Eli stretches. So one of them is shaped like a boot, and the other one is just a single unit diamond, just like what we just did here. We're going to go ahead and do the boot first. And I know there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. Again, these are just hinges, so you did not have to pre-crease those. So, and definitely don't pre-crease them, you'll get confused. But we're just going to navigate this Eli stretch, and as you can notice, the top point of our level shifter, it's only 2 units above, and that's how you can find where your pre-crease is. Sometimes, since we did a lot of creases, it's a little bit difficult to see. So if I open this up a little bit, the top end of our level shifter is right here, so we can count up 1 unit, 2 units, and that's where our Eli stretch is going to start. It's going right about here, and again, it should be pre-creased, so you can start your pleats around here on both sides just to make it a little bit easier. Right, so on both sides, it'll be the same thing here, and it starts off with mountain as such. And this is pretty simple. Again, it's just an Eli stretch, so I'm not going to really explain how to do this as much as tell you guys to follow your creases along the crease pattern. Again, this shouldn't be any difficult or trouble or confusing at all. So just navigate your creases according to the crease pattern, and you should be good to go. So something like this. There, that one's going to be a little bit different, and then it goes valley, mountain, and then sequence of valleys here. Like that. Like that on that side. And the reason for this is it kind of spreads out some of the layers so that we can draw this flap out without affecting a whole lot of what's going on. It kind of fits into the existing units that we have. And that is the purpose of this flap. That way we don't have quite as large of a consequence fold like here. So do that on the same side. Again, this is just an Eli stretch. Follow your pre-creases. The hardest part about this, or the only thing that could ever be a little bit tricky about this, is just knowing where your creases are. So again, just navigate where your pre-creases are. Use the crease pattern as reference if you lost them, but if you crease them well, they should be there. So nothing to worry about there. Or if you decide to draw them in, then maybe that might help you out a little bit too. But as you can see, I'm just relying on looking for my pre-creases, and that's how I'm navigating which ones to fold, and then collapsing as such, just like that. And that is both sides done. This left side is not as clean as the other side, so I'm just going in to make sure all the pre-creases are used, which will help it stay clean. Just like that. And there we go. Collapse that down, very nice and tight. All right, so that is this unit, this little boot shape on both sides. And now the last thing we have is this tiny diamond right here. And this kind of complements this boot and just kind of evens it out, but it'll add a little bit of a hinge on the end. And again, that's what we're going to be using for closing off the back. So if we go into our model, we're just looking for that pre-crease. It is 2 units next to, or 2 units down from the edge of our previous ally stretch. So let's just look for those valleys, and that's about there. Then it goes 2 units down, and that is about here. And it looks like I actually didn't pre-crease this, but it doesn't matter too much as long as you find a spot. Since it's a 1 unit ally stretch, it is really easy just to fold in even with no pre-creases. So here's an example that if you forgot to pre-crease one of these little diamond guys, there's no worry at all. You just kind of get those creases started and then work with the collapse to fold it down, as I'm doing, just like that. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So here's our valley. We'll go 2 units down here. That's the start of our ally stretch on this side, which again I didn't pre-crease on accident. But no worries, we can just fold this guy in. Just like that. And that allows our helmet to kind of cross over the chest, and we're going to use that for some details. Going to work out pretty nicely. And we have small consequence folds on the back side, which again are going to be used for closing off the back. All right. And so we can either fold the arms down or we can keep them up depending on how your paper is going. You know, maybe it's a little bit thick, so it folds a little bit better like this, like that. But we are pretty much done with the head, and the only other thing to collapse is actually the arm, and at least we'll just wrap that up just because it's really quick. So on this side we have our fingers. The fingers are really, you know, easy. I don't even have them pre-creased, but you can just fold them like this all at once and then just reverse fold them. In the shaping tutorial, this actually isn't the full way to shape the fingers. This is just kind of for now. So if you want to do that, you can do that for now. I'm actually not going to even show it because you don't really need to, but we're going to divide these fingers even smaller later on. This just kind of shows the structure that these will be the fingers. On this side we have an ally stretch that's exactly the same as the Samurai version 3. So here you should have pre-creased it somewhere around here. And so definitely go and find that on this side and crease it in just like this. And if you've never done this before, it's pretty much like what we even just did now, but it's you just find your pre-creases and crease it in as best as you can, and it will create the hand and hilt structure that we're going to use for the Dragon Knight, just like this. And the top end is going to become our fingers, which again in the shaping we're going to go over that, but you can kind of think about the sword. If we swivel this like so, it's going to be the hand holding the sword. And I'll show you how to do the sword. I do some shaping to it, and we'll cover that all in the shaping. But with this done, this is pretty much the entire model collapsed according to the crease pattern. I believe we have everything done. So if you've made it this far, you have collapsed the base for the Dragon Knight. So great job. Definitely not, the easiest of models. There's a lot going on here. So give yourselves a round of applause. Great job at accomplishing this. And that will be all for the tutorial. I will be making the shaping tutorials over time, but definitely a good job with this. If you're able to shape it on your own, go for it. But there are quite some tricky things to it. So first of all, the first shaping tutorial will actually be the rest of the structures that you need, even before shaping. For instance, the structures for the fingers, for the sword. Basically for the legs, you spread squash all of these. Right, you will do some more spread squash stuff here and all sorts of things. But yeah, later on we'll get into like the chest. That's very detailed, and even this for the battle dress is not trivial. But yeah, great job everybody. Once again, these tutorials take quite a lot of effort to make and a lot of time. So thank you for bearing with me over the past couple weeks. And for those folding along, thank you so much for folding along and watching. I look forward to keep making these tutorials. Don't forget to check out the links in my bio for my website. Just, check out what I got going on. And if you guys would like to support the channel and these tutorial series even more, consider joining the OrigamiByBoice membership. But with that all said, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.
All this origami got me going kamikaze.